Hey guys, I'm back. Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm finally going to be doing a movie review on Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. This is the 28th MCU film and the second Doctor Strange film. It was released in 2022. It stars Benedict Cumberbatch, Elizabeth Olsen, and Benedict Wong. In this film, Doctor Strange comes to the help of a young teenager who has the power to travel across the multiverse, and she is being hunted for her power. Now, this is an entirely spoiler-free review. There will be no details given away about this film whatsoever that were not shown in the trailers, but there is a lot to talk about with this film in terms of spoilers. There is definitely a lot to talk about, and I'll be doing my spoiler review on this film tomorrow, where I discuss my opinions on all of the details of the film. And if you have seen the film, please don't comment spoilers down below. Do that tomorrow when my spoiler review comes out. And as a lot of people have said before me, it is difficult to talk about this film in a non-spoiler fashion, but I consider myself to be pretty good at giving spoiler-free reviews, so don't worry about that. So it's time to finally start talking about Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. As a lot of you know, this was my most anticipated film of the year. I've been super duper duper excited for this film. I've rewatched every trailer, every TV spot, every clip, like a million times over and over and over again, because I've been so excited for this film. And the main reason for it is the fact that Sam Raimi is directing it, and it's an MCU horror film, basically. And I've said this before, just not on this channel, Sam Raimi knows how to make a good comic book movie, and he also really knows how to make a good horror movie. He did the original Spider-Man trilogy, and he also did the Evil Dead trilogy as well. On top of that, I was just really excited that we finally get to see more of Doctor Strange. I really love Doctor Strange. He's one of my personal favourite characters in the MCU. And the multiverse is just such an intriguing concept, and I was really excited that this film was exploring the horror side of the multiverse. That just got me so excited. The fact that, you know, there would be a few cameos in the film inevitably, because, you know, this film has alternate universes. So yeah, all of that just got me really, really excited for this film. And did it live up to my hype? Well, let's begin with this review. So before I start talking about the positives and negatives for this film, I kind of just want to say my, my main opinion of the film, if you would call it that. Just the main thing I'm really thinking about after seeing it last night. And that is that, for me, this film is a little bit tricky to review and score, because this film delivered on absolutely everything that I wanted. Everything that I was excited for, so hyped for about this film, are the things that I loved about it. And the sequences in this film that I was so hyped for and was, you know, absolutely dying to see, they were just as good as I was hoping for, and probably even better, honestly. But then there are also sequences in this film and elements which are handled a lot worse than I was hoping for, and quite a few story issues. So let's start talking about the positives and the negatives for the film. So for the positives of this film, as I just said, the things I was excited for about this film are the things that I loved about it, and just, I was looking forward to so many sequences in this film for so long, and the horror elements and stuff, and it absolutely delivered on all of it for me personally, and it was just so satisfying to watch. And just, there are scenes in this film I was having so much fun watching, like, scenes I was just having an absolute blast with, just so satisfying to see finally after what feels like decades of waiting. And I was just so happy to finally see those scenes, and I was having so much fun with them. And that is really what I wanted from this film. I didn't want a load of cameos, I didn't want everybody to show up, I just wanted to have some scary multiverse fun, and that is what I got, and I am so happy about it. And that Zombie Strange scene that some of you know I was so excited for, that did not disappoint in my opinion. Like, and because the trailers do not hint at, like, what is going on in that sequence exactly, and it's all a little bit out of context, let's just say I was very pleasantly surprised at, you know, the whole premise of that scene. And Sam Raimi's directing in this film was just so great. Like, I really loved the direction in this film. And he really gives the movie its own personality and its own vibe, and I really love that about it. And I read quite a few articles online saying that Kevin Feige was saying that this film will make fans of Evil Dead 2 very happy, and that they really let Sam Raimi, you know, do his own thing with this film. And I actually watched Evil Dead 2 for the first time in my life in preparation for this film, because of those articles, because I'd actually never seen it before, surprisingly, and I loved Evil Dead 2, I was definitely a fan of it. And yeah, in the last, like, hour and 10 minutes of this movie, it feels very Sam Raimi, and it definitely has some sort of Evil Dead 2 vibes to it, which I really love. I also really loved how Sam Raimi, you know, made it go in a darker direction than any other MCU film before it, and I'll talk a bit more about this at the end of the video, but I just, you know, I love dark movies, and this is a dark MCU movie, which I was very happy about. Also, here I have to talk about the characters and the performances. And the performances mostly, you know, pretty good. But then you have Benedict Cumberbatch and Elizabeth Olsen, who are just on another level. Like, they are absolutely fantastic in this film, especially Elizabeth Olsen, who is just perfect at playing Wanda in this film. She is so fantastic in this film. She's probably the best she's ever been in the MCU. Her character is quite a bit of a shift from how she was in WandaVision. Her general kind of like vibe that she has isn't quite as happy as it was in WandaVision, because of course WandaVision was basically a simulation, and in this film she of course no longer has that simulation. So she's sort of like forced to face being alone and all of that, which there's a little bit of character exploration alongside that, which I quite liked. This is not a spoiler or anything. It's something that I think was pretty obvious after the events of WandaVision that it was going to happen. And if you haven't seen WandaVision, or if you don't know anything about it, do your research on it / watch it before going into this film. This film doesn't, answer all the questions about WandaVision. I think the finale of that was still quite unsatisfying. I think it left me with a bit more questions than answers, and I hate how the finale of WandaVision just devolved into superheroes hitting each other. But yeah, if you don't know anything about WandaVision, you'll need to, either really quickly like binge watch it before you see the film, or read an article or something about like how it connects to this film. So yeah, overall Wanda, she's a pretty good character. And I was worried in this film that Doctor Strange, and I feel like this was like something that was definitely going to happen. It was kind of inevitable that Doctor Strange would kind of be like sort of kind of sidelined in his own movie, because you have all of this big multiverse stuff happening. But Doctor Strange is still, very much a focus of this movie, and he isn't sidelined or anything. This movie literally has, multiple versions of Doctor Strange. So yeah, he's still definitely a focus of this film. And of course, Benedict Cumberbatch is still absolutely fantastic in the role of Doctor Strange. You also have America Chavez being introduced in this film as well. And I feel like she has character development. She's not terribly underdeveloped. She definitely does have character development. She just wasn't a particularly standout, memorable character in my opinion, but she wasn't bad by any means. And some final things to talk about here. A lot of the action scenes in this film and horror scenes are pretty good, actually. I really enjoyed the Gargantos fight. That was, the big octopus tentacle monster man. That was that clip of it released. Of a bit of the action scene released on the IMDb YouTube channel before the film came out. And yeah, that's although it does maybe have a couple of errors, particularly regarding that man running in a loop, that I just like to pretend that was an intentional consequence of the multiverse unleashed. He got trapped in a loop. Yeah, that scene is quite similar in style in terms of the structure of the film to the Doc Ock fights in Spider-Man No Way Home. And it's not, I don't think it's quite as good as that action scene. I don't really think many of the action scenes in this film are as good as the ones in No Way Home. But they definitely come close. They're still very good in my opinion. And as well as the horror elements, Sam Raimi definitely does a great job with the comic book elements of this film. And I really think that's in the Gargantos scene, that the aesthetic of that, like, feels like something straight out of like Spider-Man 2. It's so great, and it feels very Sam Raimi. And what was definitely my favorite action scene, I won't spoil it of course, but it takes place when Strange is fighting Sinister Strange, and it was a scene that was very intentionally like kind of unique and like trying to be like impressive. But I don't care. I still love this scene. I thought it was really creative. Not spoiling what it is, but I really liked it. So to sum up everything that I loved about this film, like everything I was excited for is what I loved about it. Scenes in this film I was just having so much fun with, and I really enjoyed watching this film. And as someone who has been so hyped for this film for so long, it was very satisfying to see some of these sequences, and it was just a very enjoyable and entertaining film overall. But there are a couple of issues, so let's move on to the negatives. And my issues with the film are ones that I was expecting after all of the reviews that I read, but I feel like it is really the worst mistake you can make with a film like this. And I feel like there are a couple of story and script issues. First thing is that the pacing for this film is a little bit kind of all over the place and inconsistent. It's the first like sort of half an hour of it extremely fast paced. Everything is set up, right out of the gate. It's extremely fast paced, and when you get to towards like the second act of this film, it slows down for the worse in my opinion. And then when you get to the third act, it goes into like it goes into very kind of full gear mode again. And I feel like the biggest issue with like the pacing, especially in I think a lot of this is a problem because of the incredibly short runtime. I feel like the movie it kind of like tells its story as it's going along, and it never really gives you any breathers. Like it's like even in like like the second act area, I was saying that it sort of like slows down a little bit. When it slows down, it's not boring, it's not dull. It's it's still very very exciting. I was invested in the film the whole way through. But like even in the second act, it's still a load of like exposition and a load of content. And I feel like there's so much like content in this film in terms of story, and it doesn't feel fully coherent. And I think that again, I think it is an issue because of the short runtime. Initially, I wasn't too worried about the runtime because a lot of the setup for the film had already been done in previous MCU projects, like the TV shows and stuff. But I feel like the film could have done with an extra like 20 to 30 minutes, maybe even to do a little bit more setup and payoff, and let you kind of process everything as it's happening, because I don't really feel like the film lets you do that, to be honest. And the film also feels like a little bit of a mess at times, because it has so many ideas at times and so many things that it's doing, and it just has so many ideas, and I feel like it does a decent job of putting it all into a coherent narrative. And I think that it does a decent job. It doesn't do a bad job, but decent is definitely not good enough for a film of this, of this scale, and just a film of this type, I guess. A main issue I had with Spider-Man No Way Home is that the first kind of hour of it felt very, similar to, it felt very MCU Spider-Man in terms of its tone, and it felt quite lighthearted for quite a bit of it. And then, once you got to the, the past that section, and, once the film gets more dramatic, the tone gets darker, and, the stakes get higher, and it feels like it felt like quite a jarring tonal shift. And that's even more of an issue with this film. Like it isn't a terribly like a terribly like shocking tonal shift, but it isn't the most smooth, let's just put it that way. So overall, the movie's narrative and story really isn't that strong, and that's one of the reasons, that's probably the main reason why it's getting not amazing reviews. I want to say it didn't detract from my overall enjoyment of this film, because I've been hyped for it for so long, and I really, really enjoyed it while watching it, but it did stick out a little bit for me personally. It did, it didn't detract from my entire, overall enjoyment of the film, but it was definitely there. And just a small final thing here, although Wanda's character in this film is, pretty good, as I said, there are some elements of her character and a couple of small moments which I feel like aren't handled very well, and I feel like will probably divide some audiences maybe, but I feel like there was some stuff related to her character in the context of just this film that wasn't handled that good. But I'll talk a bit more about all the details and all the specifics in my spoiler review of this film. Oh, and just one final last thing here, I haven't talked about the CGI or visual effects of this film yet. Obviously, in the first Doctor Strange, the visual effects and the CGI is still, like, I think probably the best visuals for, like, any comic book movie, at least in the MCU, that we have. They're absolutely fantastic. And this film's I was surprised it doesn't, like, have that. It doesn't have that same kind of, kind of like those same, like, sort of groundbreaking visuals, which surprised me quite a bit. A lot of people have sort of complained about the CGI, particularly in relation to the Gargantos monster. And I definitely didn't think he looked that bad. I thought he looked probably about as realistic as you could get, but like some CGI like involving like the cape saving America Chavez and stuff. Obviously, this clip's been released online and stuff. That was a little bit dodgy, but for the most part, the CGI for the creatures in this movie was good, and the multiversal imagery was also great, but it wasn't any groundbreaking stuff. I feel like the visual effects are a little bit of a mixed bag in this movie. And then all of that brings us to a couple of final notes I have on the film, and maybe some things, you should know before going into it if you haven't seen it already. There are, it does have the usual, now usual MCU thing of the two, there's a mid-credit scene and then a post-credit scene. That mid-credit scene is important, and that post-credit scene is, I wouldn't say it's as important as the mid-credit scene. The post-credit scene is actually just a joke scene. But you might want to, stick around and watch that one, but it's not really necessary, but it is very funny, I'll be honest. Especially because the movie is directed by Sam Raimi, I'll just say that. And also I said I would talk about this, but this movie goes in an edgier and darker direction than any MCU movie before it. It's definitely the most scary MCU movie. Of course, it definitely does have its horror, and it is also, without a doubt, the most violent MCU movie, of any of them. Like, it is, there are some deaths in this film that are quite grisly and quite horrific. There are some deaths in this film, in fact, they're so gruesome, they literally got responses out of my audience. Like, my audience literally went like, ooh, and like that death happened. And that is the last thing you expect when you're watching an MCU film in a UK cinema. When the BBFC Insight for this film came out, when it got rated, I looked at it and I thought, this looks like a hard 12A, and it's a hard 12A. It's obviously, it's not for kids. It's definitely the least kid-friendly MCU movie. I wouldn't say it's for anyone under 12, and yeah, it's definitely the most violent and scary and dark MCU movie, and I love that about it. I absolutely love that element about it, and that's something I really, really wanted. But yeah, that's just an important thing to note. But I was definitely a big fan of that. And the last thing here: do not go into this movie with unrealistic expectations. Obviously, avoid like all spoilers as best as you can, before you see it if you haven't seen it already. But yeah, just like if you're someone who's been expecting like a load of cameos and for like everybody to show up, just don't. Like, I would say go into it with like I did with the cameos in the back of your mind, and not really thinking about them, and just kind of pretend that you don't know they're there. Then you'll probably have a bit more fun with it, I would say. But it's not like Spider-Man No Way Home, where the whole premise of the film literally revolves around the cameos. This is not like that. It doesn't revolve around them. But there are definitely still some, and some that even got a reaction out of my audience, which I definitely was not expecting. I was expecting it with Spider-Man No Way Home, but not this one. So that was definitely a pleasant surprise. So yeah. So overall, my final verdict on Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, my most hyped film for this year. It did not disappoint me. Like, I was so satisfied with what I got, because everything I was excited for is everything that I loved about it. Sequences in this film I was having so much fun with. I loved the horror elements of it. It isn't a film that, is truly like scary to me, and I also feel like there are a few kind of, a few too many unnecessary jump scares, but just because this is an MCU film, don't worry, you can definitely still feel the Sam Raimi in there, especially in the back half of the film. And yeah, I absolutely just loved that element about it. There are some story issues, some pacing issues, and some script issues in the film. But they do definitely stick out, but they didn't affect my overall enjoyment of the film. I loved the ride, I loved the experience, and I cannot wait to go see it again in 3D later on today. So I'm torn between giving this film an 8 out of 10 and an 8.5 out of 10, but I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10 because, for me, it lived up to the hype. So yeah. So thank you very much for watching this review. If you did enjoy, please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe if you want to. If you have seen this film, feel free to let me know your thoughts on it down in the comment section below. No spoilers, obviously. Spoiler review coming tomorrow where you can, give your spoiler thoughts if you want to. But yeah, thank you very much for watching this video, and until next time, bye-bye.